Hi, my name is Nikita, and I also struggled with learning English, but guess what? Today, you'll learn English through an incredible story about Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. This story will not only improve your English, but also inspire you with a tale of courage and exploration. Don't forget to turn on the subtitles and repeat after me to improve your pronunciation. It was a starry and silent night in space. Neil Armstrong was aboard the Apollo 11, gazing at Earth through the small window of the spacecraft. The vastness of space stretched out before him, filled with twinkling stars and the distant glow of planets. Neil was about to face one of the greatest challenges of his life, landing on the moon. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, knowing that millions of people were watching and waiting for this historic moment. The Apollo 11 was a marvel of engineering, equipped with all the necessary tools and instruments for the mission. Niall, along with his fellow astronauts Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, had trained rigorously for this day. They had rehearsed every step, every maneuver, and every contingency plan. Yet, despite all the preparation, there was always an element of uncertainty in space exploration. As the spacecraft approached the moon, Neil's heart raced. He knew that the success of the mission depended on precise calculations and flawless execution. The lunar surface came into view, a barren and desolate landscape dotted with craters and rocks. Neil's mind was focused on the task at hand, but he couldn't help but marvel at the sight before him. Suddenly, a problem arose. The communication with Earth was becoming intermittent. Static filled the radio, and Neil struggled to hear the instructions from Mission Control. He knew that clear communication was crucial for the landing. Neil had to use simple and clear phrases to ensure that his messages were understood. He took a deep breath and prepared for the descent. Neil Armstrong carefully descended the ladder of the lunar module, his heart pounding with anticipation. As his boot touched the lunar surface, he uttered the historic words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The barren landscape of the moon stretched out before him, a silent testament to the vastness of space. Neil began his exploration, collecting rock samples and documenting his findings. He marveled at the desolate beauty of the lunar surface, with its craters and dust-covered plains. As he worked, he maintained communication with Mission Control, using simple and clear phrases to ensure that his messages were understood. "Can you hear me?" Neil asked, his voice steady despite the crackling static on the radio. "Loud and clear, Neil," came the response from Mission Control. Proceed with the sample collection. Now continued his tasks, occasionally pausing to describe his surroundings. "I see rocks and craters," he reported. "The surface is very dusty and the gravity is much weaker than on Earth." As the mission progressed, the communication issues persisted. Neil had to rely on short, clear sentences to convey his messages. "Sample collected," he said, holding up a bag of lunar rocks. Returning to the module, the dialogue between Neil and Mission Control was simple and repetitive, but it was crucial for the success of the mission. Each phrase was carefully chosen to ensure clarity and precision. "Can you hear me?" Neil repeated, checking the connection. "Affirmative," came the reply. "Prepare for ascent." Neil's experience on the moon was a testament to the importance of clear communication. Despite the challenges, he remained focused and composed, using his language skills to navigate the complexities of the mission. His journey was not just a physical exploration, but also a lesson in the power of words. Let's take a closer look at some of the important phrases Neil used during his mission. For example, "That's one small step for man." "One giant leap for mankind" is a powerful way to describe a small action that has a significant impact. You can use this phrase in various contexts to emphasize the importance of a seemingly minor action. Another useful phrase is, "Can you hear me?" This is a simple and effective way to check if someone can hear you, especially in situations where communication might be difficult. You can use this phrase at work, in a restaurant, or even when talking to a friend over the phone. Neil also used clear and concise sentences to describe his surroundings, such as, "I see rocks and craters." This type of sentence is helpful when you need to provide a quick and accurate description of what you see. It's important to use simple vocabulary and avoid complex words to ensure that your message is easily understood. Let's practice using these phrases in different situations. For instance, you can say, "Can you hear me?" when you're on a video call and want to make sure the other person can hear you. Or you can use, "I see rocks and craters" when describing a landscape or a scene in a movie. Remember to keep your sentences short and clear to avoid any misunderstandings. Common mistakes to avoid include using overly complicated words or phrases that might confuse the listener. Instead, focus on using simple and direct language to convey your message effectively. By practicing these phrases and using them in everyday situations, you'll become more confident in your English communication skills. Now, let's practice what we've learned. Imagine you are Neil Armstrong and you need to communicate with Mission Control. Try using the phrases we learned to describe what you see on the moon. For example, you can say, "I see rocks and craters." Repeat after me. "I see rocks and craters." Great. Now, let's try another one. Imagine the communication is failing and you need to check if Mission Control can hear you. Say, "Can you hear me?" Repeat after me. "Can you hear me?" Excellent. Now, let's put it all together. Imagine you are collecting samples and need to report back to Mission Control. Say, "Sample collected." Returning to the module. Repeat after me. "Sample collected." Returning to the module. Fantastic. Now, I have a mini challenge for you. In the comments, describe what you would do if you were on the moon. Use the phrases we learned today. For example, "I see rocks and craters," or "Can you hear me?" Let's see how creative you can be. Remember, practicing these phrases will help you become more confident in your English communication skills. Keep repeating them and try to use them in different situations. You're doing great. Today, you learned how Neil Armstrong communicated during his mission on the moon and used those phrases in a practical dialogue. Remember, every little bit of practice makes a difference. Keep repeating the phrases and try to use them in different situations. You're doing great. Don't forget, learning a new language is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to your goal. Stay motivated and keep practicing. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and check out the next story to learn even more. Together, we can make learning English fun and exciting.